In this example, we are going to create a small Android activity which launches a new activity inside our application package. We will send two numbers to the new activity, and the new activity we are going to select a calculation method, and finally we are going to returning the result back to the first activity, and we are going to show the result. So the demo will be working like this way. You can type a new numbers, for example this kind of numbers, and then you select the calculation. The new activity will be launched, and you are clicking one of these buttons, for example add button, and you can see the result. Okay, this is what we are going to create today. And first, let's start to create a new Android Studio project. You need type application name, for example a calculation, and your application company domain name, and so what we have discussed in our first video. We are ready. Click next one, and you can select whatever API version you want to, but I'm going to use this new one for today, and click next one and select an empty activity. Okay, the naming rules is okay. Our first activity will be a main activity, and the second activity what we are going to launch will be a naming like a second activity. It's okay, our learning purpose today. Just click finish. Okay, now we have a main activity Java class, and then we need to modify our main activity so the end user can give two different numbers and select a calculation method and show the result. You can remove the template define hello world, and then let's drag and drop a new text view. We can say that you can be in the top, and you can define it, for example how far it's from the left and right corners, and we can modify the text, for example give a hint to the end user, give two numbers. Okay, and below that one we are going to drop a few text number fields so the end user can give two different numbers. Let's say that it's a little bit down from the first one, and the left and the right, and the next one, the second number, a little bit below the first one. The user interface is not important today, just drag and drop those elements. Finally we are going to put our button, and let's say it's a little bit down from the second number, and the same left and right, so it will be in the middle. And in here we can change the text. For example, what we are putting is a select calculation method. And finally we are going to show the result, select text view and drop it below the button. Let's say that you are a little bit down in here and a little bit from the left and right, and change the text as a result. And we are going to show the result after the calculation method has been selected in our second activity. Okay, the layout for the first main activity is ready, and now we need to create the second one. And in the second one we are going to drop 4 different buttons: add, subtract, multiply and divide. And when the end user is clicking those buttons, the numbers will be calculated and the result will be shown. Let's select an app node here in the project with the right mouse button, a new activity and empty activity. So we are going to create the empty activity only with the 4 different kind of buttons. The naming rules, okay, it tells that main 2 you can use like a second for today, and we want to layout everything else is okay. What it does a new activity class for us, and it will does a new layout for us. And for what else it does, it includes a new activity in our manifest file. In a manifest, we have a main activity which will be used as a main and launcher. The main class will be, not the main class. It is a main on create will be called, and the launcher, the icon will be visible in the phone. And the second activity doesn't need that kind of actions and categories. We are only using the second activity inside our application package, so it will be launched with an explicit activity. Okay, let's modify the second activity user interface. So select the second activity layout file and drop 4 different buttons. So the first button, let's say that it's a little bit up and a little bit left and a little bit right, and give it the label name, for example, add. Again, it gives you a small warning that you should hardcode strings in the user interface elements, and we have discussed it in our material. So the better is that you move all of your strings to the string resources. But I will skip this today, and just this is important how today we are going to launch a new activity, and how you can send data between the activities. So let's drop a new button, tell it a little bit down the first one and a little bit left and right, and you can give, for example, on a subtract. And this next one, yes, go there. It's not taking that. Why? I don't know why. Let's put in here, and it should be taking that one. Okay, yes, now. And let's give it the name like and multiply. And the last one, let's drop a last button, our divide button. I don't know, is my mouse working correctly, but let's drop it, yes, and give it the name as an divide. Now we have these buttons ready, and we have our main layout ready, and we have our second layout ready, so we can go to the main activity and start programming how to launch a second activity. Okay, we are missing the event from the main layout button, so select that one, and you need to give some kind of method name for the on-click event handling. For example, that calc button clicked. And you need to then implement this method in your main activity. Public and void calc button clicked. And the button is extending from the view base class. We need to give it as a parameter. So the main activity layout will be drawn to the screen with the onCreate method, and when the end user is clicking the calculation button, this calc button clicked method will be called. And we need to find our edit texts, so we knew what numbers the end user has typed. Find edit texts, edit text, and for example number 1, edit text, find view by ID. So we need to know those IDs, and we don't define any specific IDs with those. So maybe we need to change because they are using the default namings and it's not so easily to remember. For example, number 1 edit text, and modify the another one, number 2 edit text. You can use as whatever names you want to, but for example, this is good one. Now go back to our main coding. So we can find this number 1 edit text, and we are doing the same for the second one. Edit text and number 2 edit text, find ID and number 2. Now we have both of these numbers, and you need to find the text what has been typed in these edit text views. String, for example, number 1 string, and we are using the number 1 get text and get string to string. Okay, and the same for the second one. String number 2 string is a number 2 get text to string. Now we have the number text. And then we can grab the numbers double 1, for example, double, parse a double and a number 1 string, and number 2 of course you can use try switch case losses in here if you want to, but it's not important today. Okay, now we have two numbers, and then we need to call second activity. And in Android we have two different kind of intents available. Intents are asynchronous messages, which allows application component to request functionality from other Android components. And for today, we are not going to use an implicit intent. We are using the explicit intent because we want to launch our Java class inside our application package. So explicitly, we knew what we are going to do. So let's create a one intent, new intent, and who is the caller? Our main activity class is a caller, and which is explicit the new class. What we are going to call is a second activity class. So now we have defined an explicit intent. We are calling a second activity inside our application package, and we can do it because the manifest is telling that we have a second activity. We can call it. So if you are missing this line, you will get an error. All right. Now we need to include a data inside the intent. These two numbers. We want to send something from the first activity to the second one, and we want to send these numbers because the demo is working that way that the second activity we are going to select what we are going to do with these numbers. So let's add a data bit inside the intent, and we can use a put extra. Then we need to define a key, for example number 1, and the value. This is what we are going to send, and we are doing the same to the second number. Now we have put data inside our intent. It's like a package, and it gives us we can use like a primitive data types, integer, floats, and so on, plus object like a string, bundle, parsable, and serializable object. So you can send many kind of data within activities using the intent and the bundle extras. Okay, and now we need to start a new activity. And when we are going to start a new activities, we have two different kind of methods available. Start activity can be used, but then when you are finishing the second activity, you will not get anything back. So we are not going to use a start activity method, we are going to use start activity for result. So then when then the second activity is closed, then on our own activity result will be called, and we can show in our user interface the result of our calculation. So start activity for a result, and it asks an intent and it asks a request code. So your activity can launch many different kind of activities, and you need to know where you are coming back. So we need to define one integer value, our request code. And for today, for example, we are going to use a private and final int and show calculation activity, and we give some number for it. And we are going to use that one as our request feed. Now the new activity will be launched, so this second activity will be called and activity second will be drawn to the screen. So the end user can see our buttons. So we have an add button. Okay, we need to modify it a little bit, supporting this on click event. So for example, on add click it and subtract click it, multiply click it, and finally divide click it. And you need to implement, of course, this method in your second activity. Okay, when this on creating the second activity will be called, the user interface will be drawn to the screen, but the more important is that the main activity is sending the intent with these numbers. We will need to get the intent and the bundle so we can find the numbers. So in the second activity on create will be called, we need to get data numbers today from the calling intent, and it gives us a bundle, and we are going to use as an extras is a normal naming. So get intent, so we get the intent, what was the caller, and get the extras. And now we can find the numbers. Okay, the numbers will be used in different methods inside this class, so let's add member variables. Private, double, 1, 2, and result. Okay, and the number 1 we can get from the extras, get double, and our key was number 1. So main activity has this key, and we have a second number 2 key. Number 2 coming from extras, and our key was number 2. Okay, now we knew the numbers what is coming from the main activity, and we need to implement those 4 different buttons. Event handling method, public void, and we have add, what was the name, I need to go back in here, so it's an add clicked and so on. Add clicked and it a button, so it's coming from the view, and we need to take that one. And what we are going to do, our result will be number 1 plus number 2, and we are going to do the same few times. Of course, we need to rename this method. So we have an subtract button, and we have what else we have? It's not subtract, it's subtract button, and we have an multiply button, and we have a divide button. Okay, subtract, we are going to subtract our numbers, and multiply, we are going to multiply our buttons, and we are going to divide, not the buttons, the numbers. And when each of these button is clicked, we need to send our result back to the caller application. So for example, calc done, we are going to use the same method in our application. I will put a little bit enters here so you can see. So private void and calc done. Okay. What we need to do, how we send back data to the caller activity. We need to create an intent. Create an intent. Intent is a new int. And we include the result. Add result. Intent. Put extra. Result is our result. Okay. And all is okay here. So we are set result. And result cancelled. Okay. The user has selected something and the result is okay, and is our intent what we are going to send. And finally, close activity is finished. Now our second activity is ready, and when the end user is selected one of those calculation methods, the calculation is done and the result will be sent back to our caller activity, and the activity will be closed using the finish. So we are going back to the main activity, and more specifically the main activity on activity result will be called. So public void on activity result, and it has a few parameters: int request code, and this request code is the same what you have used. You have requested to show calculation activity, so it gives the system is giving you back the same request code, so you are knowing where you are coming back. The second is int result code, is it okay or whatever it is. And finally there is an intent and a date, so your result will be inside this int, and this is like an override. It's coming from the activity class. Okay, now we need to think about our request code. We can, for example, use a switch case request code, and is our request code our show calculation activity? If yes, then we are coming back from there. And if our result code is like the same what activity is telling us a result, okay, so everything is okay. User has really coming back, it's not cancelled, it selected something, and we can use a bundle to get the result from the date, get extras. Okay, and we need to bind our result. We can use from extras get double, and our result was our key was a result. Let's double check that one. So it's a result, yes. And finally we need to show the result from the user interface. And in the activity main we have an text view where the result is visible. Oh, some awful has happened in my layout, but let's check that later. So the result was this view, so maybe we can rename it a little bit. Result text view. Yes, and then go back to the main activity, and we need to find it. Text view, find our ID, our result, text view, and we are going to show our result. Text view, set text, result is, and let's add our result. Okay, and now our coding is ready, but there seems to be some problem in the user interface. Let's double check what is error is in there. So it tells that is not defined, the ID is not defined anywhere. Okay, we need to double check that. Edit text is not defined, edit text is not defined, and some error with the button, but some awful is happening our result. Let's move the result in down, so it's not correctly positioned. This first button is somehow wants to be at the top. What is causing that one? Maybe because this has some problems. Let's see in here. So the bottom is okay. We changed the ID, so that's why it doesn't know where it should go. So we need to, for example, okay, let's see, edit text 2. So it's not the edit text anymore. So we change this value. So it's number 1 edit text. So this is bottom of that one, so number 1, and this button is below this one. Oh, I'm sorry, this because we changed those variables in the text view, so they doesn't correctly change in here, but now everything should be correct. Okay, and we can test is our application working. Let's launch it, and your connected devices should be listed in here. Now I have only one emulator running, so I'm select that one and find my emulator. Application will be launched. The APK file will be created with the debug key, and the application is running in the emulator. So I type something, 2 different numbers. Select the calculation method. The new activity will be launched, and I click add, and the calculation, the result will be 35. Select some other calculation, for example multiply, and we have 276. Okay, and you can close your application, and this demo is ready.